Greetings QCS build fans and welcome to a dirty TV. This one's been sitting out in storage for a little while because we haven't had a chance to get to this. So this is a Samsung U50H 5000 series. This is an older set. This is 2024. So at time of filming, this is roughly about 10 years old, pretty close. So LED backlit. It's one of the first LED backlit TVs Samsung ever made. We can still get parts for this. So we're gonna go ahead and change the backlights because, yeah, it's got a lot of backlights out. So it's got so many out that the power supply won't even kick on for a power on self-test. But yet it will turn on and it has sound, but we just don't have any backlight. So anyways, let's tear into it. All right, so first things first is we're gonna take a back off. So for reference, this is a UN50H 5203 TV. So I like to call this the half back because you actually have a metal partial back to change your main board and power supply out, and then you actually take the full outer frame off to get to your T-conn and everything else. So, all right. Now this is the first video where I'm actually using our new audio mic setup, and so we'll see how this goes. I'm hoping it's going to be a lot better because you won't get as much background echo when I mute the camera track, and so yeah, hopefully this is a good thing. All right, so this is our main board. This is our power supply. Now if I remember correctly, this actually is a smart TV. Although it's the very simple version of what we'd call a smart TV. It doesn't have the Knox OS on it like the new Samsungs do. This is long before that. And so, okay, so first things first, we're going to go ahead and take our main board off. Now, because this TV is so old, the preemptive warning on this is hopefully nothing's going to break as we disassemble it. The biggest concern usually with sets like this is the ribbon cables on the panel itself. The adhesive that holds those on there tends to get brittle. And so hopefully we'll see if it holds together for us. Go and take off our power supply here. Now the big difference that you'll notice between this power supply on this LED set and the power supply on the modern Samsung sets is this is a power supply that's very similar to your basic LG or modern Vizio or anything like that, where you don't have a multi-phase output for your DC. Unlike the modern ones, they use a multi-phase DC output for their backlights. to generate the desired brightness. And so it works totally differently. So you cannot test those with a standard backlight tester. Not effectively, really. You can test it to a certain extent, but yeah, to get the entire array to light up for a full test is tricky, to say the least. Take off our wall mounts here. Oh, frame's gonna have to come off first for that one. Okay. So, to access your T-conn board and your button control and your IR board, you have to remove the outer frame on this one. Now this is the same for any of the H Year model sets. Believe it also goes for the F Year model as well. This style was pretty popular for about 3-4 years. And so it was a favorite of mine to work on because you didn't have to completely take the whole back off to change a main board or a power supply. Because most of the time, within the first 5 years, that's usually what you were changing out on these. And if I remember correctly, this is the last back they made before going to what now is considered to be the pop-off back that you have to use a putty knife to remove. Okay, and then just gently kind of lift this guy off. I'm gonna have to undo this piece of tape here. Just like that. And for reference, you can see right here, this is our button assembly. And then this right here is our Wi-Fi card. Oh, which also the button assembly does include the IR receiver on it as well. All right, then we can go ahead and remove our speakers. And these particular speakers, there's no plug right here. They're actually internally wired, so you do have to remove them as a pair. There we go. Okay, now we can finish removing our mounts. Now the biggest thing on this one, this is a 1080p set. On Samsung, specifically, if it's a 1080p set, it will have a T-conn board. Anything that doesn't have a T-conn board will have dual LVDS cables and no T-conn board, and it comes directly from the main board to the buffer. So then we can go ahead and take our stand mount off. Just like so. Okay, and then from here, we'll go ahead and remove our T-conn board. We can go ahead and leave our LVDS cable on here. Because of the age of this set, I don't want to move a bunch of ribbon cables around too much if I don't have to. So we're going to go ahead and disconnect our panel cables. Take off our screws and remove our T-conn board. Okay, so similar to a modern Samsung LED TV, or even like a LG LCD, this is actually clipped in. So we're going to take and we're going to move this back here. So right through here on this inside, so you have the actual panel, and then you can see this is the outer frame right here. That's actually clipped in, and then there is an inner subframe that actually is probably what the glass sits on. And so we'll have to remove that. So you've got, you can see there's two layers of plastic and then the metal frame. So we'll have to gently pop this all apart. Now, I'm using a razor knife to do this, which is honestly probably not the safest way to do this. Recommend probably using a putty knife. And all I'm doing is I'm just kind of walking this down the inside. And actually, if I pop this up, you can see there's actually little arrow markings on the outer frame. That's where the clips are. Roughly. Okay. Now, I would recommend, if you're doing this at home, probably want to clean this if it's dirty like this. I'm just being extra careful, so. There we go. There. Man, that thing's on there. Okay. Okay. So way up on the inside, you've got these little tabs. And the easiest way to get it off is just do what you saw me do, and is just kind of wiggle it until it pops off, because it actually latches on the inside of the subframe. So getting a butter knife, anything up in there to unlatch it without breaking the panel cables is probably going to be highly difficult, and I wouldn't recommend it. Use some spray away glass cleaner. This is the amazing Sarah's lovely trick that she discovered for this. And I'm using a microfiber cloth, and I am not pushing. That is key. Especially when you got this much dirt on something, don't push, because you don't want to scratch or scuff the screen. And then be extra careful around your panel cables. Okay. sure we get all the massive amounts of dust off of here before we try to pick this thing up off the frame. Now a smaller one like this, if you got a big enough hand span or arm span, you can probably just pick this thing up and set it on a table. However, if you're not super tall, I would recommend suction cups. Okay, so this one's a little different than the modern ones. The modern ones have those silicone pads that they kind of clip into. This doesn't. So you're gonna push up, tip out the bottom, and then gently slide it down so it will unslot itself. Like so. If you try to pull too hard or you try to force this, I have had these pop off before. And so, yeah, not so much fun. Okay, then if you're gentle, just like that. Okay, all right, down to the easier part. Our little rubber pad didn't stick too much, so that's a bonus. All right, so then we're going to unclip our sides here, and let's see. Oh yeah, this is interlocking. So, okay, so on this one, you're going to undo your top and your bottom first. Okay, there's the top. And then the bottom comes off the same way. So right here, you've got these little tabs. There. And the sides, if you just start at one end and just pop them loose. It's like that. Okay, then we can take our filter layers and our diffuser all in one. There is some assembly tape right here on the top. Oh, looks like they have it on the top and on the bottom on this one. So just pull that back just a little bit. Do the same thing right here. Looks like this is to hold the filters down on the assembly line, because they probably assemble the panels and then place the glass on separate lines, would be my guess. So that's what the captive tape is for. Okay. And then just like that. Okay, so now we can see we've got 4 pairs of strips. It looks like we got a connector in the middle. And to get this guy off, looks like we will probably, you could probably mess around with that and slide it off without having to take these off. I would just go ahead and take them off. Make your life easy. So, now the easy way to do this is with a pair of pliers. Okay, well then, I'm just gonna we're just gonna pop those through. Now, if you notice, this is very similar to like a Vizio teardown. That's because Samsung used to make the vast majority of all Vizio's panels back in the day. And looks like our reflector is going to come out with those. Yep, that's okay. All right. So out comes those. Okay. And of course, as always, for the most part, big thank you to Shopjimmy for being our backlight supplier. I know they don't actually give them to us. We buy them from them. But they are who we get the vast majority of our backlights from. So for these videos. Also, they make a great reference tool for being able to look up different parts for different versions, especially on Samsung. I like this. In order to prevent premature repeat failure, all backlight strips/bars must be replaced at the same time. Yeah, if you got this all torn apart, don't replace one bad strip, just replace all of them. Otherwise, you're just shooting yourself in the foot. This particular set is Samsung part number BN9628770A and 28771A. The 1 part number is for one side, the 0 part number is for the other side. Because you have a right and a left piece on this, basically. And look at that. They're even the same. All right, cool. So basically we have a short one and we have a long one, like that. And then we have our connector. And you can see with some of these we've got some burnout because we got this black residue on the inside from burned out phosphorus. Okay, now these are not actually adhesively stuck down to the panel. They've actually got these little clips. So the clips, of course now that I've got these laid out, we're gonna have to flip this over and then pop our clips loose from the back side. So we'll put these back over here for now. Now, before we do that, I would highly recommend you undo the connectors on your backlights because what you don't want is your connectors breaking off your wires. Otherwise, you're going to be using super glue to reattach your cables, which does work. I have done it in the past, but it's not ideal. And like any plastic that's this old, just be gentle. All right, flip this back over. All right, make sure we line this up on our table here. And then we're going to undo our little pins. And then you can hear our strips actually dropping through. Okay. And then these actually lock together. So if you're going to undo them, you actually have to press and pull them apart. So. Got some dead flies inside there. Yeah, not surprising. Okay. Yeah. All right, easily enough. We're just going to slide our locks into place. You'll hear it click, and then they don't come apart unless you press and unlatch them. So, okay. You got little alignment nubs everywhere, which makes it kind of nice. And then it should be 4 pins for every unit. And they should kind of click in. If they don't click, then you'll want to double check and make sure that they actually, let's see, that one didn't hold in place. Because what happens is when you actually have to press these together to get these to compress so you can pop them out, occasionally what will happen is they won't spring back. And so what I do is I'll take a razor knife and I will just bend these up just a little bit to get these to spring back like that. And then they hold in nice and tight like they're supposed to. Because otherwise what will happen is if you don't double check and make sure they're holding in there, if you go to transport this thing, these will fall out and then you'll end up with a really bright spot in your TV because your strip is not being held flat to the panel and it's popped forward. Or you might end up with a dark spot because the backlight slid behind the reflector. Okay. All right. Set this back in. Now, one nice thing about this particular reflector design is our little pins will actually pop through our little holes right here, which do a couple of things. One, it helps to align your reflector, but also your LEDs are cut out specifically for it. Okay, same thing goes with these. Pop them in. And I think, oh yeah, these ones are. These ones you can actually turn 90 degrees and pop them in and they'll hold. Like so. Put our reflector and not reflector, our diffuser and our filter layers back in. Make sure you get them lined up over these little tabs. Otherwise your inner and outer frame are not going to go back on quite right. And you'll be fighting it. So make life easy on yourself. Okay. All right. Then we can go ahead and put now, one thing you're seeing me move my hands back and forth, I'm pinching, I'm not sliding. Don't slide your hands across the bottom of this. This is stamped metal and it does tend to be a little on the sharp side. Okay, the bottom is a little different because you got these slots right here, which correspond to these slots right here. So you do have to get those in as you're locking this down. Otherwise it will not go together right. Okay, now we can put our glass back on. Again, a smaller piece of glass like this, you can handle with one person pretty easily without suction cups if you're fairly tall. Otherwise, you're going to want suction cups, and especially if it's anything bigger. Anything bigger than a 50, I would use suction cups. I wouldn't do it without. It can get kind of heavy in the middle and you take a good chance of the glass cracking on you. And there are alignments in here. The glass needs to be inside these alignments and not sitting up. If it is sitting up and you go to put the outer panel on, you will likely crack it. So, in a lot of ways, this is a very precision kind of thing to do. All right, so then we're just gonna tip our buffer so we can get underneath these tabs. Slide it up and in and let it drop down. And then it sits on this lower piece right here. Like so. Remember, slow and steady wins the race, especially with this. Don't get in a hurry. Okay, now we're going to clean it again. And this time I'm going to actually make sure we get everything off, just because of the fact that I don't want to have to clean it again once I get everything on here. Just be very careful around the ribbon cables. You snag one of those and you're done. Game over. Also, these outer loop backs, don't tear those off. I knew somebody who did that once by accident. Wasn't a good day. There. Make sure we get all the fly poop off of it. There. All right. Now we can put our outer frame back on. At this point, I would make sure you're just cleaning everything as you're putting it back on. You don't want a random piece of dust or dirt getting caught underneath and then damaging the glass. You don't know how many comments that I see people saying, oh, it was going so well, and then the glass cracked. Well, I feel your pain. Go watch the failed LG video, and you'll see that I feel your pain. I've also had large 75-inch Visios die on me too. So it's a thing. All right, so now gently just kind of slide this back on. Make sure you do the bottom first. Okay, and then you can walk it up the sides, getting your corners in place, like that. Now, one thing you probably noticed is this does not have a buffer cover. That's because this outer frame acts like a buffer cover, and that's why I'm going back through and I'm pressing this in and make sure it's fully seated. So, okay, there's that. All right, and we can flip this guy over. And we can start putting everything else back on. So, start with our T-conn board. Now, the easiest way to do this is leave these attached and then slot one cable in and then slot the other cable in. Now, if you can get it lined up. All right, there it goes. Okay. And with that, then you don't have to fight the cables. Okay. All right. And then we're going to reconnect the T-conn side of our LVDS cable. There we go. All right, and then we can put our stand support back on. All right, I'll run, oh. Okay. Put our speakers back on. Now these speakers are a little different. These tabs actually go inside these holes, like so. I always like to say with most things, the more they change, the more they stay the same. Well, with electronics, it's always the evolution of the standard. Okay, so make sure you put your wall mounts back on before you put your outer frame back on. Otherwise, you are not going to get your outer frame on, or you're not going to get your lower mounts back in place. All right, go and reconnect your backlights. And then we can connect our main board cable. And while we've got this all connected, do a power on self-test here. Okay. Well, let's see what we got here. Okay. Got our bottom set at 39.9. Metal set is at 39.9. And then we got two sets tied together for 79.7. So perfect. So all of our strips work. Now, always the joy of this is sometimes you're going to get a bad power supply because your LEDs have gotten so bad that it's put an excessive amount of strain on the backlight section of the power supply, and it kills the power supply. So we'll go ahead and put our main board back on. See our red lights blinking? So we've got startup. And it's off. Okay. All right. Well, we'll go see if I can go find a power supply and my spare parts for this. So we'll pause and we'll be right back. Okay. So it's now been a week later, and we just got this from UPS via eBay. So for 15 bucks, I got a new to me, slightly used to someone else, power supply. So hopefully this does the trick. So sometimes eBay is your best option for inexpensive used parts that more than likely work. So, and this looks like it's the exact same one I wanted. So, yep, lo and behold, it's the exact same board. So, cool. Now, supposedly, this one was taken out of or recycled out of a unit that had a cracked screen, or a bad panel, which is perfectly fine. I have been known to use perfectly good working parts to repair units, so out of machines that were damaged in one other way or another. Plug this guy in, and we'll find out if we get a good power on self-test here. We should. We got new backlights that test perfectly fine, and we got a backlight or power supply that's supposed to be perfectly good. So, oh, look at that. Nice. Okay, cool. We'll finish putting this together, and we should have a working TV. Hey, look at that. We have a working TV, even though it's 10 years old. Perfect. All right, so go into our smart menu here. Hey, look at that. Perfect. Now, of course, this TV is so old that most of this doesn't work anymore, but there is no reason you couldn't plug this into an Xbox, PlayStation, or Roku, or even just use it as a 50-inch 1080p monitor for your computer. Absolutely no reason. Or it'd be perfect TV for like a kid's room or something like that, that if you were just going to hook it up to any of the aforementioned smart devices, consoles, or whatever, and just, you know, or hook it up just to like a DVD player or something. So yeah, 10-year-old plus TV and still works like new now. Perfect. All right. Well, if you like this, make sure you like, share, and subscribe. And thank you for watching, and we'll catch you on the next one. Bye for now.